Hey folks, welcome back to the Adventures of the Hive Patrol. And tonight, we're going to review Pendleton Whiskey Military Edition right here. Pendleton Whiskey Military Edition. All right? Got my U.S. Army whiskey glass. Got my World War II Jeep jacket, my Jeep hat. Because it is a little chilly out here. It's about 50 degrees, and I know for some of you that's not cold. Tonight we have an iconic leaf. I got a fancy little cigar cutter. The Bashful Trick cigar cutter. Right here. See it? Doesn't open. But wait, there's a magic trick. Sim salabim alakazam. Open this cutter as fast as you can, and it's open. And we're gonna I hear a jet. I'm gonna cut our cigar with it. And once again, it is locked. Now I'm going to take off this superfluous cigar band. And using my new-to-me pseudo military lighter, I'm going to light up. That is a good cigar, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how it goes with French roast. Goes pretty good. Okay, let's open up this whiskey. This military edition has some interesting aromas. To the Army and the Navy and the battles they have won, here's to the flag of freedom whose colors never run, and may the wings of liberty never lose a feather. I smell I smell the dewy grass on the parade ground in front of the company area. Yeah, that early morning formation smell. I smell a little bit of the faint hint of the preservative they put on the canvas. You know, when you're issued a new shelter half or a blanket. Faint hint of that smell. Mm-hmm. A little beef with spice sauce. A little chocolate disc with toffee bits. Yes. A chocolate disc with toffee bits and a slight hint of cocoa beverage powder. Slight hint of canned peaches. Coffee type 2, I think. Yes, coffee type 2. And Lucky Strikes. Lucky Strikes, yes. Brings back memories. Here we go. Wow, is that smooth? Holy cow. That takes me right back to the NCO club at Fort Benjamin Harrison. It sure is. No! It does. Oh, pardon my French. That's the GI in me coming out. A yellow bird with a yellow bill was perched upon my windowsill. I lured him in with a crust of bread. Oh, well, you veterans will know how the rest of that goes. It's a family channel. Not made for kids, but hey. Wow, that is super smooth. This is some of the smoothest I've had in a while. I am getting this again. Definitely getting it again. You know, for some strange reason, there's a weird lag between the camera and my phone. So, my monitor's not reflecting what I'm actually doing at that moment. It's like a 2-second lag. Oh yeah, I'm gonna double dip on this. Man. True story. We're out on a field maneuver, and I was the fire direction control section chief, and we had an M577 command track. It was like an M113, but it was twice as tall, so you could stand up in it. And that's where we stored all the gear for doing fire missions at the time. Pre-computer days, did everything with graphic firing tables and range and deflection protractors and whiz wheels and pens and pencils and charts and you name it. You name it. For charge green bag and charge white bag, and you artillery guys, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. Anyway. We were doing a real-time maneuver and a scenario. It was a scenario where an aggressive force was encroaching on the battery, so we had orders to bug out. So we tossed everything inside the track, and we took off. We bugged out, and we're following behind the guns, right? And all of a sudden, from the middle of nowhere, and this is like at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, we heard a dull thud. And the lieutenant, he's got his head outside the track, right? We're running without lights, and he's trying to keep the lead vehicles in sight. And he goes, "You smell that, guys?" And we could all smell something. And we said, "Yeah." He says, "Man, someone around here is having a barbecue. And it smells really good. And you could smell like barbecue beef, and it was really strong." And we were like, "Wow, some other unit that's training around here, maybe they're standing down and having a battalion barbecue or something." He says, "Yeah, man, it was great, right?" Well, the smell never went away. As a matter of fact, it got stronger and stronger and stronger. Then it started to smell like burning. And this guy named Steve was driving. And all of a sudden he heard him say, "Holy blank." The lieutenant goes, "What?" He says, "I got a can of beans and Wheaties in my C-Rat, and I put it on the manifold of the track to warm up." So when he bugged out, we forgot all about it, and it exploded, and it blew beans and Wheaties all over the inside of the engine compartment. Oh, man, it was a god-awful mess in there. And they made that guy Steve clean it up. Oh, man, he didn't want to, but he cleaned it. That was a hell of a night. Had a couple of crazy adventures on that track. So one time we were driving down a dirt road, and I mean it was dirt, and it was dustier than hell. And this guy named Bill was driving. Not this Bill, a different Bill. And there were 6 M109A1s in front of us. The captain's Jeep was way out at point. And behind the M109A1s were 2 deuce and a halfs, and then we were pulling up the rear. So needless to say, there was a mountain of dust flying behind all those vehicles. And poor Bill, he had a bandana around his face, and he was wearing his sunglasses, and he couldn't see jack. I mean, he kept saying, "Oh my God, I'm half blind up here. I can't see anything." And Lieutenant's like, "Oh, just make sure, you keep listening. Make sure you're paying attention. You don't want to run up on the vehicle in front of us." Well, I was standing up in the vehicle, and behind us, set in the wall of the track, were these clips that you snap your weapons into. Well, there were 4 of them, and we had 4 M16s clipped in there. Well, the clips were made for an M14, right? The Army hadn't gotten around to changing them out yet. Well, the lieutenant, he's standing on a platform with his head outside the track, helping Bill steer. And I'm standing behind the lieutenant between the 2 tables, and the Steve and Jay, they were sitting on the other side. The other 2 guys in the in an FDC. And I thought to myself, man, I'm tired of standing up. So the second I sat down, I spun around and sat down on the table, and bang! That track stopped for a second, made a hard right turn, and all those weapons flew out of those clips, hit the lieutenant in the back of the legs. He fell down through the hatch on those weapons, and that thing did a 180-degree turn and came to a dead stop. Now it was still running, but when Bill tried to back it up, it made a hell of a noise. So Lieutenant's going, "Don't move it, don't move it." So Bill lowers the back tailgate down, or actually I did. I lowered the back tailgate down. And we all piled out and ran to the front of the vehicle. And there was a big groove in the dirt with a huge trail of oil. So what happened was is that Bill got off the road because of the dust. And there was a rock, I would say, the size of the front half of a Volkswagen. And he hit that with the right front track and knocked not only the track off, but the whole final drive, broke it off the front of the vehicle. And the lieutenant's all crippled up. After a couple of minutes, the adrenaline starts to wear off, and he's like, oh my God. So he dropped his drawers, and he had cuts all over the back of his legs. We broke out the first aid kit. We're doctoring him up. Jay got on the radio, called ahead of the captain's vehicle. Hey, we have an emergency back here. You got to come back. Well, there was hell to pay. I'm glad I wasn't driving. And they made that guy Bill help repair that vehicle. That was a hell of a deal. I don't tell that story much. You guys are pretty lucky you heard it. I got other stories about the Army. I don't tell much. I got a couple I really can't tell you about. I'm not trying to be all spooky and mysterious or anything. That's not true, but there were times when I did some training with classified materials that are technically, I'm not allowed to talk about, but not that they're still classified, they're probably not, but nobody told me different. And the last thing I need to do is tell you guys on YouTube, and next thing you know, someone's knocking on my front door and saying, hey, what the F? Bill, you said, well, I know. And I was lucky to get that security clearance, considering my grandmother came from Soviet Russia. My grandmother, she was something. Moved to the United States when she was 12, around the end of the World War I. Well, it was a few years after. It was around 1920. She might have been a little older, a little younger. She doesn't remember. She didn't remember. She's passed now. It's funny how people born in those days, they don't necessarily remember or know exactly when they were born. Because they weren't born in hospitals, they were born at home. And you went and you registered your kid at the church when they were baptized, And sometimes that didn't happen for a few months after you were born. So you're back in those days, your birthday could be between 6 months and a year off, She told some crazy stories too, that she remembers when she was a little girl. And they're not pretty stories. Man, when Lenin took over that country, he cleaned house, and big time. I mean, can you imagine being 10 and 11 years old and seeing people killed right in front of you? I know what happens in the world to this day, but a little girl, man. Maybe someday, during a whiskey review, if I have a couple more, I'll bring it up. Okay. Pendleton. Military District, Camp Pendleton. Yeah, Marines trained there. And to any of my Marine viewers out there, I'm just going to say, since we're all part of the same club, but just different branches, Semper Fi, do or die. If the Army and the Navy ever look on heaven's scenes, they will find the streets are guarded by United States Marines. And I'd really like to believe that. Yeah, my grandmother, she was a character. She talked like a little bit like Betty Boop. If you've ever seen a Christmas Story, or I'm not Christmas Story, a Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase, and there's the old aunt, you know, Mae Questel. She was the voice of Betty Boop. That woman, when my grandmother was almost 100, that woman looked and sounded like my grandmother, and I love watching that movie just so I can see her come in. Because she reminds me of my grandmother so much. Because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, because my grandmother and grandfather, because both my parents worked. And they would drop me off at my grandparents' house, and they would go to work. And in the summer, I was there every day. Right? Every single day. So, this is how they babysat. I'd get there, my grandmother would give me something to eat, and bang, I was outside. Now, I had a whole bunch of toys at my grandmother's. There was a closet outside that had a bunch of toys in it. And I could take those toys out, and mainly toy soldiers and cars and trucks and things. They had a garden I was allowed to dig in when there weren't tomatoes in it. That's all they ever grew was tomatoes. But I had the whole run of the yard, front and backyard. And I had a very active imagination. So my toy soldiers got in trucks and took maneuvers, and they did all kinds of stuff. Because when I was a kid, you watched McHale's Navy and Combat and The Gallant Men and 12 O'Clock High. You watched all those, the Rat Patrol. You watched all those war shows. And everybody on the block, all the guys played soldier. It was just something you did, you know, back in those days, right? My dad and my uncle were Korean War veterans, and there were a lot of people, my friends, parents were World War II and Korean veterans. So it was just a ubiquitous thing. But anyway, to get back to the original story. So, you know, you're working outside and it's hot in the summer, you're playing, and you get thirsty. And he would knock on the door. And my grandfather, if he was home, because he worked for the Long Island Light Company, and he worked various hours. So sometimes he was home, sometimes he wasn't. And he'd be in the kitchen reading a newspaper. And he read 2 newspapers every day. Now, this is a man who never graduated the 3rd grade because he had to go to work. And I knew my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother, so they were still alive when I was little. And work was very important to those people. You know, there was no such thing as being lazy. You know, my grandfather had a whole list of things he did during the week if he wasn't working. Chores, worked around the house, mowed the grass, took care of all kinds of stuff. So you knock on the door, and he'd go, "What the hell do you want?" "Grandpa, I'm thirsty." "You're thirsty? Jesus Christ, there's a hose outside. Get a drink from the hose." So you'd go and turn the hose on and wait till the earwigs and the beetles were flushed out of it, and then you could have your drink of water, right? And unless you had to do number 2, you didn't come in the house. You knock on the door. "Jesus Christ, what the hell do you want now?" "I have to go to the bathroom." "You got the whole damn outside to go to the bathroom. Well, you don't need to come in the house for that. You got to make water?" "Well, yeah, you can do that outside in the garden." For crying out loud, don't bother me. And my grandmother's the same way. "What's for lunch, Grandma?" "Oh, we're going to have a ham sandwich with escarole and chicory on it on monk's bread. And maybe if you're good, you can have some Fritos. But Grandma, that's what we had yesterday. For crying out loud, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, don't complain about food. You're lucky to have food. When I was your age, I ate everything on my plate. Oh, yeah, okay, Grandma, okay. There were no such thing as treats at their house. There was no cookies, no cakes, no pies, no Oreo Hostess cupcakes or Twinkies. Those things didn't exist. And there were only two sodas they would ever buy: ginger ale and Coca-Cola. Because my grandfather, on Friday and Saturday nights, would sit on the backyard with a highball and a cigar. And of course, they use those as mixers. And if I behaved myself all day, I could have a little glass of ginger ale before I went to bed. And guess what? It was room temperature. There was no ice water or ice cubes at their house. Because ice will make you sick. It'll make you sick as a dog. You'll get stomach aches. And I don't need you to have a stomach ache. And there you have it. That was her. I'll talk more about her in the future. But my grandparents were great people. My grandfather was way better than my dad ever was, let me tell you. I wish I had 2 minutes to talk to them so I could tell them how much I appreciated them. So if you have someone in your life like that, tell them. You don't always get the chance. Fortunately, I did have a chance to say that to my grandmother before she passed. Well, this is really good stuff. I highly recommend Pendleton Whiskey Military Edition and Iconic Leaf Cigar is outstanding. This is super smooth. It doesn't have a great Kentucky hug. Let me check something out here. I didn't do it earlier. Oh. This is a 80 proof. Not too strong. And it says right here, a portion of every bottle sold is donated to the Bob Woodworth Foundation. We've got your 6, and it means we got your back. I knew that. And it's an enduring commitment to our service members and veterans, and to each other, and to our country. A promise of camaraderie and support to the battlefield and beyond. Well, you know what? Appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Huh? Different jets. Anyway. I really appreciate you joining me tonight. Click like and subscribe. I don't know where I'm going to poke it in. Someplace. Here. And tell your friends about the channel, have them subscribe to it. Make sure you click the bell so you get all the notifications. And a couple of channels I want you to check out. One of which is Cold War Motors. The guy up there, Scott in Canada. It's a great channel if you like cars. Um, another favorite of mine is Wonder Hussy. She explores the desert Southwest and does a great job, and she's pretty humorous. She makes me laugh a lot. But anyway, love you guys, and you take care of yourselves, and see you soon.
In television and electronics, the name Dumont is your hallmark of quality and distinction. Dumont, first with the finest in television.